Okay. Very interesting. Let's actually go and talk about this. Let's go and talk about this specific article. University professor scrapes the barrel. So obviously, the newspaper is trying to highlight the bigotry of this professor, Adam Habib. I'm guessing he's a Jew. Sounds like a Jew. Sounds like a communist as well. Pretty sure he's something like that. You say, that's a bit harsh. Let's see what he has to say here. Your associations in the US prove what disgusting human beings you truly are. You are an embarrassment to South Africa and its constitution. Every nation has somebody who reflects its worst side. The Germans had Hitler, the Ugandans Amin, apartheid SA verwoed, and currently SA the two of you. Now that is fairly harsh and that is serious demonization by this guy. Let's get this. He is a professor. I don't know what kind of professor he is. But he basically is saying these two guys is at Hitler's, Amin's level. Apartheid SA verwoed. Verwoed was not responsible for mass murdering. I mean, he was responsible for a lot of the segregation stuff. I'm assuming. I don't know the full history of verwoed, but probably. And but even him, associating him with someone like Hitler and Amin, really, dude, then you at least have to start talking about people like Mussolini. You have to start talking about people like Mao. You have to start talking about people like who's that Liberian leader with all of his evils that he's done. You have to talk about many, many, many other people before you even get to verwoed. And for that matter, I mean, you know, let's go talk at, you've got Mao, you've got Stalin, you've got serious, serious mass murderers before you even start getting at these people. You know, and for this guy to actually start associating them at this level, well, may his bigotry be exposed and may it come down on his head. I mean, that is really rough. I'm assuming maybe these two guys associated with some far right or some heavy conservative groups. I'm assuming that is probably what's happening here. Because as he's saying, you know, your associations in the US, I'm assuming it is conservative associations. Now, Mr. Habib must know one thing. Nobody else is willing to listen to the plight of Afrikaans South Africans. They say they do, but they don't. Because in the international community's eyes, the Afrikaans white South African is an evil thing and he is getting what he deserved and white people always has it easy. And that is the way they reason about stuff, you know? So, in that kind of setup, these dudes, these two guys, I don't know, Ernst and Cully, whatever their names are, you know, they will be desperate for anybody to hear what they have to say, you know, and get a bit of support and traction internationally. They don't care how they get it. Or they probably care how they get it, but they do not care who is willing to listen. They're desperate for anybody to listen. Because international organizations and nations and countries has basically thrown South Africa under the bus. They assume it's going to go all pretty. It's a bit like with Libya. It's a bit like with Syria. It's a bit like, I'm guessing, a lot of other places, you know. They come in, regime change happens, everybody thinks it's going to be dandy, everybody thinks it's going to be amazing, and then it's not, you know. People start suffering, people get marginalized, you know. Kettle's basically calling the pot black, or the pot's calling the kettle black. Doesn't matter. You know, it's quite interesting. Let's talk a bit about segregation in old South Africa. You know, so it's serious segregation, you know. Every group was totally disassociated with each other, and every group had to look out for themselves. And the white government looked after the white people, and the Jewish and English people that were in power when it comes to economic matters, from when South Africa was still a colony, they basically ran the financial show, and then the Afrikaans speaking white people, they ran the political show, and the administrative side and the civil side and things like that. And then obviously you had all of these black countries in the east and eastern part of South Africa, where they were trying to say to the black people, okay, each of you go your own way and you go do your own thing and live in your own peaceful little piece of land and prosper there, but stay away from all of us. If you come here, then you're just going to be laborers for us, Otherwise, go live in peace somewhere else. We don't want you here close to us at all. If you're here, you better leave by the evening. All you are is a laborer here. And vice versa. Same for the white people. White people weren't allowed to go to the black areas. Same for the Indians, The thing about Indians are they're shrewd business people. They build up a lot of wealth back in the day. The only people that used to pay tax back then was white South Africans. So they basically upheld the economy. And made sure there was enough for whatever was required. But as I said before, the international community did not help black people in their areas. They could have developed a lot. Black people in South Africa had vast amounts of really good soil and land that they could have done a lot with. It's a bit of a shame nothing happened with it, but it's what it is. But now on that point, here's the one thing to remember. Black people were allowed to create jobs and businesses in their communities for their own people. The thing now is that white people in South Africa are not allowed that privilege. There are vast amounts of white people in South Africa that is fast deteriorating. Simple working class people with no good educational background. They might have school education till they were 16 or 17 or 18, and that's it. And they're just simple working people, and they don't get jobs. White people don't give them jobs. Afrikaans white people don't give Afrikaans white people jobs. English white people don't give Afrikaans white people jobs, or English white people jobs. The government has basically got an agenda to equalize stuff, but for that, the white man's not allowed to get the basic jobs. And actually, there's shops and businesses that close down if that happens. So in that sense, the pot is actually calling the kettle black now. Because everybody was demonizing white South Africans for that. But now, the next generation of white South Africans is starting to suffer more and more and more. And they had less and less and less to do with it. The thing to remember as well is white South Africans freely created a referendum and said they want democracy. It wasn't taken from them. It was voted in. It was a free and peaceful process. That's also something to remember. White South Africans could have been like Israel and said we're just going to keep on sticking it out. But they didn't. So for the sake of reconciliation, these white people should also be brought into the economy. They shouldn't just be left behind. They've got potential to do stuff for the country, but they're not allowed to. And that's on the current South African government's head. So it is a bit of a touchy subject, But for this guy to go and try and say these guys is at the level of Hitler or Amin, may this hypocrisy sit on his head, because that is just pure bigotry. All these people are trying to do is get some know-how out there for people to actually hear the plight of a lot of poor white South Africans and the way it's going with them. And I don't know what his problem is with that. I would suggest, instead of him demonizing them, give them a means and a way to do it differently, because that is one of the things a lot of South Africans do. They demonize everybody. Nobody speaks out, nobody improves stuff, everything falls apart. This Adam Habib, here's the irony about him, right? Let's say South Africa does not improve in the next 10 years, and it's just keep on going the same route it's going right now. He's going to leave the country. He'll probably go to Israel and live there happily. No harm, no foul. It's like people like the Oppenheimers, that own stuff like Anglo-American. They're all dandy with South Africa changing, but now that it's all violent and corrupt, and the South African government is putting a lot of pressure on them, they just go live in the UK or in the US, happy days, or in Switzerland. And the rest of the masses just need to go and suffer. So, no, this dude should really get his head screwed on right. That is no good. What he should really be saying is, shame on the two of you, you should not associate with certain kinds of people. But acting like they're at the level of Hitler and Amin, like mass murderers, not even close. Can't even think of it. I'm pretty sure these two men has never killed anybody, or raped anybody, or committed any violent crime against anybody, or robbed anybody, or did any house break-ins, etc, etc, etc. The biggest thing you can actually complain about them for is maybe saying that they're only looking at the plight of a small group of people in South Africa. They're looking at it in such a conservative way and isolated way. It's no good. They should come together and look at the bigger group of people's issues in South Africa. Maybe go about it a different way. At least they're trying something. A lot of Afrikaans people have nowhere to go, no way to improve themselves. They're being demonized. They're not allowed to have the simple jobs. They're not allowed to go work in restaurants. They're not allowed to go work in gas stations. They're not allowed to go work in mines. They're not allowed to do a lot of work that they can actually have a bit of money. The only thing they're allowed to do is create businesses. But they're working class. They're not academics. And they're definitely not conglomerate business savvy English Jewish people living in Johannesburg, because they really ran the economy and the businesses, and that's just a fact. But yeah, interesting. I really think this guy should get a wake-up call. He will probably get a wake-up call at some point. It's always like this with open-minded liberals. They try and demonize people that are conservative, maybe have a different point of view about life, or care about a different group of people than him, and they always demonize them. That's always how the left works. And then when everything starts falling apart, they just go dead silent and they leave. And that's probably what this dude will do. It'd be interesting to actually find out what this Mr. Cully and Roets actually did, who they spoke to, or who their associates are in America that's so vile. I hope it's not something like the Ku Klux Klan, because that's just messed up. And South Africans, white South Africans and Afrikaans South Africans really do not care for that kind of stuff. We are not socialist nationalists by default. We were fairly simple people actually, very naive about the world, and mostly just want to be left alone and to live a bit in isolation and look after our own. But that's not really what the global powers wanted way back in the day. So the whole world really changed and things really turned out ugly for us. We've always had things really not going very well for the Afrikaans people. We might say it did, but in reality it didn't. If you look at the history of South Africa, you'll see it never did. We'll still have a chat about that at one day. Either way, very interesting. May all of this crap come down on this guy's head. May these two guys wake up and make sure they don't go and embarrass Afrikaans people with their business, whatever they do. Yeah, interesting stuff. So he's basically the dean of the University of Johannesburg, this guy, and he just goes straight up and demonizes them like that. I'm pretty sure professors or smart people, the academic leaders, they will look at him and think he's a bigot. He probably knows he is. But now it's too late, damage done. But that's how the Jews are in South Africa. They're fairly open-minded liberals, far left. But then after that, what they really start doing is, in Israel, they're very pro-nationalist and all about the Jews, and saving themselves and making sure that the Arab countries don't run over them. But they don't want anything like that for anybody else. And the fact is, in the old South Africa, the Afrikaans white people really looked well after Jewish people's interest in South Africa. There are over 150,000 Jews in South Africa, the second most after the US. And Jewish people did really well here, very wealthy, very affluent. Either way, just how it is. Interesting stuff.